Are you someone who can trust yourself at a restaurant? The chef may be a bit heavy-handed that day and put, 2 tablespoons of butter instead of 1. Less food consumed is lowering the calories, meaning that you're more likely to be hitting your goals for that day and not overeating. The other thing is, don't go hungry to a restaurant. You could think about how you feel now and I'm missing out on that cake, or you could think about how you're going to feel or how you want to feel in the future. It's not the food that is giving you the experience. It's being present and being with the people. One meal is not going to end the world. Welcome to the Stronger, Fitter, Happier podcast. I'm your host Vin, and today you are joining me solo for an episode where the other coaches are not present. So Sadie and Nick couldn't make it for this one. I was going to wait till next week, but I decided that it will put me back a little bit. So rather than recording 2 next week, here I am on my own. And the reason why I'm telling you this bit is because it's a little bonus tip. It's not what this episode is about. But for anyone who's basically being stopped in their tracks by things that they want to do, or stopped in their tracks when they're trying to do things they want to do by external things that they don't have control over, you have to push on. You can't let barriers or everything that is a perceived barrier stop you. You just have to roll with the punches sometimes and just get on with it. You can always put things off and kick the can further down the road. And that is something that just keeps happening. So when things like this happen, it's important just to get on with it and do your best rather than wait for the perfect scenario. Anyway, now that that little bit is out, let me get on with the main content for this episode. So this episode is all about eating out. So what this is a guide to eating out. And in this guide, we're going to be going through quite a few different things, but this is mainly for anyone who is trying to lose weight or on a deadline of like a goal they're trying to achieve, or they eat out a lot and they want to stay in shape. This is not for one-off advice when you're just going out to eat for the random one-off time, or someone who's just maintaining weight and happy with the way they are and their body shape and things like that. This is not for you guys. Like I said, this is for a very specific set of people. And the reason why I'm getting that out there is my first basically tip is to know yourself. So my first tip before you go out to eat and you're trying to lose weight and things like that is know who you are. And the reason why I say that is there are plenty of people out there who have things like eating disorders and, who have a poor relationship with their food. And some of the things I'm about to say in this episode may, cause even more issues if you are that type of person. So that's why I'm clarifying who this episode is for. And also the first point I'm going to start with, the first tip that I'm going to start with is to know yourself, know who you are, and know if this advice is applicable to you. And also depending on who you are, and I'll give you a few points on that, is you'll be able to kind of take on board which piece of advice I'm about to give in this episode fits with you. So for example, are you someone who can trust yourself at a restaurant? Are you someone who is trying to eat well right now? You're doing really well, but if you go out to eat, you're just going to derail your progress because you're someone who typically has a poorer relationship with food when you don't have full control over your nutrition. Are you very early in your journey? If you are, then maybe you're someone who possibly shouldn't go out to eat at the moment, or do something slightly different than going out to eat when you're socializing. This is not for everyone. We're very big on everyone being able to do things like eat meals out, go out to eat with family and friends. We're all about that. But you got to know yourself. And things like, can you stick to a game plan? If you plan ahead and you know that, this is what I'm going to eat when I go out to eat, or this is the restaurant I'm picking, can you stick to what you have planned from at home? Or are you easily influenced by others? Some of these tips may not be applicable to you if you're easily influenced by others. If you are, then you may need to kind of be strategic about where you go to eat with certain friend groups, the ones that push you to eat the chocolate cake when you really, really not that you shouldn't, but that you may not want to. Do you see what I mean? So that is what I mean by all of this stuff. Like, do you need to kind of know ahead of time where you are going to eat? Or are you quite far adapted in your nutrition journey and you have a lot of nutrition knowledge where you could just pick off a menu, any menu, and just pick the healthiest option? Or do you need someone to guide you through that, like a coach? Or, do you need external advice on, what's the best option for me and my goals to eat? If these are all things you should be considering before you even go out to eat. So once you do know yourself, you know the type of person you are, you've given this some thought, then you can kind of proceed with the plan. So first, what I'm going to get at is making a plan. So that's my next tip. And this tip works really well for anyone who's tracking your calories. And if you don't know what tracking calories is, it's basically just almost like keeping a food diary. It's keeping a log of what's going into your mouth. And this is a very, very useful tool. Even if you're not tracking it accurately on MyFitnessPal, some sort of food diary is really good for anyone who's trying to lose weight because it just gives you some sort of accountability. Humans are notoriously bad at, trying to guesstimate the amount of food you're eating. So I always recommend to everyone to keep some sort of food diary or track your calories quite accurately, especially at the start of your journey for a considerable amount of time. And this may be for 2 weeks or even longer, but tracking your calories definitely helps. And making a plan of action before you go out to eat really, really works well for anyone who is tracking their calories. But this advice is applicable for anyone who isn't tracking their calories as well. So what I would recommend to anyone is make a plan. Choose a restaurant, choose what restaurant you're going to eat at wisely so it works in your favor. And what I mean by that is, if you're tracking calories, pick a restaurant that, while your friends and everyone may be happy with, you also are happy with in terms of it. You can track it. You can track the calories. There's nutrition information available to you. Or if it's not quite available to you, you can make sensible choices based on the knowledge you have, or pick alternative restaurants. So for example, if you're going to a pizza place, you can pick a generic pizza place. Even though the place you're going to may not provide nutrition information, a margarita pizza that's 12 inches usually is going to have similar calories to other restaurants who do provide information. So that sort of thing. Is it basically trackable? Is it calorie friendly? Is it something you and your friends are going to enjoy the taste of? That's the sort of thing I mean by choose your restaurant wisely. Then plan out what you're going to eat. So most restaurants nowadays, unless it's a really, really fancy restaurant, and if it is one of those restaurants where you're never ever going to visit probably more than twice in a year, just forget this advice and enjoy yourself. For everybody else, if it's a restaurant that you commonly visit, you'll probably likely have an idea of what their menu's like, or it's available online. So plan ahead, pick what you're going to eat, pick what works with your nutrition kind of guidelines or whatever you have in place of your targets, and then kind of work back from there. And that's my next tip, work backwards. So say you plan to eat a large pizza, it's 800 calories, 900 calories, whatever, and you eat 2000 calories in a day. You know that if the pizza is 900 calories, you've got 1100 calories still to eat throughout the rest of the day, and you can plan your meals according to that. Normally, you may not eat a 900 calorie pizza plus other calories from other things, but you can plan ahead for that. You can then make the rest of your day a little bit lower in calories or so on and so forth. You can even adjust for macros. If you're going to have a really high fat meal in the evening, you can make sure the rest of your meals are not that heavy in fat, if that is the kind of way you're going with your tracking. And if you're not tracking calories or you're not doing that sort of thing, you can still plan ahead. So you can plan ahead to eat something that you deem to be suitable for your nutrition. And then you can still work backwards because you know what you're eating later in the day or even a week ahead if you really want to be, be mindful of this. Then you can kind of make decisions ahead of time in terms of what you're going to eat the day before that, to allow for that meal to not make an impact on your goals. And what I mean by that is, like I said, I already gave the calorie example for that day. Like if you eat a certain number of calories and your calorie goal is 2000 to lose weight, you know you need to subtract and do the maths on the day. But let's say you're going somewhere that is super indulgent. There's lots of food that you just want to try and you're going to smash out like a 2000 calorie meal in one night. Obviously, you cannot starve yourself the whole day. I know some people can, and some people have the willpower to do it, and it's just not the best way to approach nutrition, to starve yourself to eat one meal. But what you could do, if you really, really didn't want that meal to make an impact on your overall progress, is adjust for that day extra of calories. So let's say on that day, you're going to eat a total of 3000 calories, but you need to hit 2000 calories that day. You're over by 1000. What you can do is for the rest of the days, 6 days, divide the 1000 by 6 and subtract it off your 2000 calories. So what it does is then you've got your total weekly calorie goal you've actually met, as opposed to, not meeting your weekly calorie goal. So calories are not always just about day to day. You can look at them as a weekly goal. I know that there is a point where that stops. You can't make it like a monthly goal. And you can if you really wanted to, but it's better just, week is the maximum window I would probably go with. And you can decide when that week starts or ends. So, you may basically decide to go out to eat tonight and then be like, I haven't planned ahead for the week. You could do it the next week. Do you see what I mean? It's not, your body doesn't know that it's Sunday today or Monday today or whatever day you're listening to this on. It just knows how many calories are coming in and out as a whole over a general period of time, and you can adjust for that. So that's what I would do. Damage control, allow for that like kind of buffer for that meal to be incorrect as well, because you don't know, on that day you may decide I'm gonna just sneakily add in a 400 calorie dessert that you didn't plan for. But if you allow for that buffer or you planned ahead, you can then kind of restrict the calories that you may eat throughout the rest of the day. So anyway, moving on. That's what I mean by planning ahead, and that's why it's important. And there's a few things that you should kind of consider, especially if you're tracking calories, that there's going to be a margin of error. So even if you planned ahead and you've gone, 900 calories I'm going to be eating, like I said, you may just decide to order a dessert. Or the chef may be a bit heavy-handed that day and put, 2 tablespoons of butter instead of 1, what they've kind of accounted their nutrition for, and it's a little bit oilier that day and your calories are a little higher. You're not in control that day. Do you see what I mean? You're not making the meal, so you have to allow for a bit of a error, and then if you plan ahead, you can adjust for those things. And I also mentioned about the like for like swaps. You may be someone who's going, but I'm going to a restaurant that's quite bespoke or, doesn't typically have calorie information. There are apps like MyFitnessPal that have a big database where people have home cooked meals. Like let's say you're going for a Thai dinner. Most Thai restaurants may not have like calories available, but people do make these meals at home. So let's say you put red Thai curry. There may be a supermarket red Thai curry that you could replace it with and just add in a few extra calories for, buffer. That sort of thing is what I mean by adjusting and planning ahead. You can't do that if you don't plan ahead. But what about, I hear you. What about if it's a spur of the moment thing? What if you didn't know you were going out to eat a week in advance or even the day before or even the morning before? What if you were just out and about, something came up and you're going to eat out? Well, there are a few things that you could do in this situation, and this is what this part is all about. So rather than planning ahead, you're going to have to think on the spot and make smart choices while you're out. And what I would say to everyone is, if you're not someone who's a mammoth of a person, and what I mean by that is like you're someone who is heavy on the scale, whether it's to do with muscle or fat or whatever, you are heavy on the scale and you don't have lots and lots of calories to play with. The heavier you are, the taller you are, the more likely you have larger amounts of calories to consume and still lose weight. So someone like me who's quite short, quite light, has to eat anywhere from 1400 calories to 1800 calories to lose weight, which is, it's an okay amount, but it's for most people who, tend to are bigger than me or taller than me will eat a lot more than that, and that's like a very, very small portion for them. So for those types of people, you can, you have a lot of calories to play with. I know people who lose weight at like 3,000 calories, and they can, just pick anything off the menu and still be fine because they haven't eaten much through the rest of the day. However, if you're not as lucky, what I would recommend is going for mainly protein-based options as the base of your meal. So when you look at the menu, rather than going, oh, pizzas, if it's a spur of the moment thing and you haven't accounted for it and you need to kind of be calorie conscious, pick the lower calorie options on the plate, on the menu. And that's typically going to be the things like meats, lean meats or salads and that sort of thing, or the vegetables, meals that are made up of those sorts of things. So pick your protein and your veg or salad as your base of your meal, bulk that out, and then think about carbs or fats. And the reason why I say carbs or fats is both of them, or having like a high fat, high carb meal, like for example, chips, pizza, both of them contain fats and carbs, will drastically up the calories. Whereas if you pick something like grilled chicken with some vegetables and roasted potatoes or new potatoes or whatever, you're more likely to have the lower fat, like it's going to be a lower fat meal, meaning that the main calories are going to come from protein and carbs. That meaning that is going to be a lot lower in calories than if you picked French fries instead of like new potatoes. So that is what I mean. Be sensible about your options. Go for the protein, go for the like kind of salads, the filling things that are high in volume. There's lots of it on the plate, but not lots of calories on your plate, if that makes sense. What I would also suggest is avoiding starters and desserts and just go for a main, or pick, I don't know, just a dessert or just a starter. And if you have more calories to play with, then pick like 1-2 courses as opposed to 3 courses. So pick a starter and a main, or a starter and a dessert, or, I don't have to go through all the options, but that's what I mean. And the reason why I say this again is because it just lowers the calories. Less food consumed is lowering the calories, meaning that you're more likely to be hitting your goals for that day and not overeating. And the other thing is, there are always lower calorie options to compare from. So most restaurants are quite aware that people are health conscious now. They want basically they want to indulge, but they also want options of lower calories if they feel free, if that's their choice. So things like prawns on the like grilled prawns on the starters will be there, as well as like some deep fried something, and so that you can eat lower calories if you wanted to. So it's just a case of applying some discipline. While something may be much tastier if it is typically higher in calories because there's lots of fat and other things thrown in, the lower calorie option, while it will be tasty, still it's going to be better for your goals. So just pick that. So even with desserts, like while there may be chocolate cake and ice cream on the side, there may also be some sorbets, which typically would just be carbs as opposed to carbs and fats, and typically lower in calories. So that's what I mean. Be kind of selective about your choices. Avoid like lots of courses. Avoid really high calorie options. The other thing is drinks. Drinks rack up on calories quite easily. So be mindful about your drink options. If you're going for a meal and it's a spur of the moment thing, you haven't planned for it, try not to have things like cocktails, sugary drinks, high fizzy drinks, high calorie fizzy drinks is what I meant to say. Alcohol. Not that these things you can't get low calorie options, but you have to remember these are also highly palatable things typically. Like most people, if they have a cocktail, may want more because it tastes so good. Or if they have an alcoholic drink, may want one more than just the one. So why not save on something that is not going to fill you up as much as food would, and be strategic about where you're picking your battles. Remember, you haven't planned for this, so you need to kind of be a bit more restrictive in what you're choosing off the menu. So I'm not saying you can't ever have alcohol or sugary drinks or things like that. just drinks is typically one place where you can easily save on calories by picking like a 0-calorie, sugar-free fizzy drink, and carbonated drinks can fill you up as well, which is a bonus tip, or just simply water. Just getting into the habit of having something that doesn't taste like sweetness and, doesn't have that it doesn't give you like a dopamine rush of when you're drinking it, will help you kind of practice more satiety and relying on those impulses that you naturally have. Like, I'm feeling full of this water as opposed to needing to have lots and lots of sugar. So water is just the best way to go at most meal times as it is, and you can have lots and lots of it to fill you up alongside food. I'm not saying just drink water to fill you up, but alongside food, and avoid you from overeating because there's no calories in that water. So the other thing to be aware of when you're out and about, off like kind of just spur of the moment, is condiments, oils, sugars, sauces, and cooking methods. Something that's grilled as opposed to deep fried, or like bathed in butter is going to be a lot lower in calories. So just be aware of cooking methods. And remember to ask questions. If you don't know, if the menu just says chicken, then ask, how is this chicken cooked? You're the consumer, you're the person paying the money, so you are not in charge. I'm not saying like the customer's always in charge and customer's always right. Well, in most cases they are, depending on the business you go to, but you have every right to ask questions and be picky to a certain extent without someone spitting in your food. Hopefully you don't go to restaurants where that might happen. Anyway, you have the option to be a bit picky and also ask for it to be cooked the way you want. So if the potatoes are usually, I don't know, let's say the green beans are usually fried in butter, you could ask for them to be boiled and hold the butter. It's totally up to you. I do it a lot when I'm having things like corn on the cob. I ask them butter on the side or sauce on the side, and then I can choose how much I put on. These are things that you can do at a restaurant, especially when you haven't planned for those calories. So the final thing you can do is, if you don't know what you're going to eat or you just want to indulge a little bit while you're out, do damage control after. Now, this is where, my advice about like, if you're someone who has a poor relationship with food, please kind of don't take this advice. Take this advice with a pinch of salt is what I'm trying to get at. What I mean by damage control after is not starving yourself or punishing yourself because you ate something or you overate a little bit. What I'm talking about is mindfully being aware that I ate a lot of food today. Maybe tomorrow I should just eat a little bit less or eat something a bit healthier, and doing it consciously with a positive mind, not with, self-hatred or just, it's like basically sitting down all day and then the next day going, I'm going to go for a long walk because over the weekend I was lazy and I was a slob. You didn't do it out of punishment. You almost did it out of reward, out of taking care of everybody. And it's the same mindset I'm trying to suggest to have with this. Damage control after, in terms of damage control is probably not the right term to use to promote a healthy, positive relationship with food. But let's say you overindulge, you overate, then the next day slightly maybe undereat or just reduce your calories or just be a bit more mindful about how much you're eating is what I'm trying to get at. So those are the two main things I had to say in terms of plan, and if you are out just randomly, those are the main things. But some other things that you need to consider. So I've also already spoken about this, but hidden calories. Like, there's always error when you're going out to eat, whether it's through like the chef being a bit heavy-handed or, the chicken breast, they didn't weigh it. They just put a chicken breast on, and sometimes you get a bigger portion, sometimes you get a smaller portion. When you get fries when you're out, sometimes you're lucky and you get someone's been a bit heavy-handed. These are things you can't account for when you're in a restaurant. And also when you are tracking, if let's say you've gone to a pizza restaurant and they've drizzled olive oil all over the top of the pizza, and you go somewhere else and they don't do that, but you've tracked from the place that doesn't normally do that, then there's going to be a margin of error in your meal. or that's what I'm trying to get at. Be aware of this and maybe add 10% extra, or just be mindful that there's going to be at least 10% error in that either way as well, not just up. It could be down. The other thing is, don't go hungry to a restaurant. So the reason why I say don't go hungry is because whether you have a game plan, whether you've tracked your calories 31 days in advance and you know exactly what you're going to order when you're going out to eat and you've done really well, if you are starving and you see chocolate cake on the menu and you see all these trigger foods that normally get you to really get your appetite going, you are going to find it difficult to control yourself. You're going to have to exert a lot of willpower. So why not just save yourself that hassle and just go a little bit more full? And the way you can do that is not by just eating loads of calories. There's things like that are proven to help with satiety and control hunger. So things like coffee, things like a protein shake or a protein dense meal, vegetables, fruit, water, drinking enough, being hydrated. There's so many things that you could do to make sure that you're a little bit more satiated, a little bit more full before you go out to eat. And that is my top tip for you. The other thing you could do is think of actually alternative ways. So like if you listened to me at the start and thought, you know what, every time I go out to eat, I bugger it up, whether I plan for it, whether you just really are and you've been doing really well, you're in a good place and you really aren't bothered about whether you go out to eat or not. You're not like a huge foodie and you get lots of joy from being out to eat. Why not think of an alternative way to meet up with your friends? Why not think of an alternative thing that you could do? And here's the kicker. Like yesterday, I went out with my family. Like we're basically trying to eat well as well. And also we wanted to just go outdoors rather than to a restaurant. So what we did was we made dinner at home. We took it out to the park and we ate dinner in the park. And it was amazing. Because it's midweek, it was very quiet at the park that we went to. It's normally really busy there. And it was just so nice to be eating on a blanket, out in the nature, with my children and my partner. It was just lovely. And we're going to do it again tonight, actually, because we enjoyed it so much. Now, that is a really easy way, an alternative way to meet up with friends where you control the situation. You take the food with you as opposed to getting it out. You then are in control. So if you're someone who just struggles when you're going out to eat, these are things you could do. Or just skip the food thing altogether and do an activity-based, meet up or something, socializing. You have control. The other thing is not worrying what people think about you. So when you go out to eat, it's very easy to, be like, this person's going to think that I'm on a diet, or I'm going to get all my friends think of me like, they're doing it again and they're going to fail again. And, having these judgmental things, we have those friends, we have those people in our lives that you care about, you love, but they're just not always the most supportive, or, they egg you on to do things that you may not want to. This is where you need to be a bit stronger and not worry about what they think. Ultimately, you have to remember is if you're successful in what you're trying to do and you know your why, you know this is really important to you, you have to remember that if you get to this goal, you achieve this goal, it's very likely that these same people who put you down or may be judging you are going to ask you for help one day. And you just need to keep that narrow tunnel vision of your goal and not put the blinkers on and not worry about everybody else. Now, I always say this to everybody, is that you can talk yourself into doing anything you want. And what I mean by that is, while these people may be whispering in your ear, like, order the cake with me, I really want a cake, especially when there's just two of you, it's very difficult to do that, to say no in a situation like that. You can talk yourself into anything. You could just go, they really want this cake. I just want to be a nice friend. I don't want to be confrontational. I'm gonna get it. Or you can go, my needs are just as important as theirs. I deserve to be happy. I really, really am doing really well right now, and I just don't want to order this cake with them. Do you see what I mean? Like, you could literally talk yourself into making any decision you want You just have to listen to the basically who you feed, the voice you feed is what you're going to take action on. So you can either, feed the voice that you feed, the part of you that wants to make a decision to do something that is not going to support your goals, or one that will. It's up to you. The choice is totally yours. And a really easy way, or really good tip to help you make this decision is something I say to a lot of people. Rather than think about how you feel now, or like feeling like in a situation now, let's say you're at a party, not even at a restaurant, and you're eating out, there's barbecue, you picture healthy food, and then, someone brings out the cake and you're like, oh, I want to go get that cake. You could think about how you feel now and, I'm missing out on that cake. Or you could think about how you're going to feel, or how you want to feel in the future. I want to feel in control of my body. I want to finally feel like I can get ready in the morning without worrying about the way I look. I want to lose weight so I can have more energy and, more stamina, and to run around with my children and not feel like I'm holding them back in life by saying, I can't go on that walk with you. I can't go to the park because I'm too tired. These are all things that you need to think about, as opposed to in that moment about missing out on that cake. And you have to also remember is that in the situation, something feels like, fear of missing out, like you get that FOMO feeling. But remember, unless it's like a really big celebration or once in a lifetime, where you're going to a restaurant that's incredible, you're probably not going to go there again for a very long time or ever, you're going to get to experience that again. And you could experience that when you are able to eat more calories, when you are maintaining your weight as opposed to trying to lose weight or trying to achieve a specific goal. And you can enjoy yourself then, or you can then have it then. It's not like you're missing out completely. You can, and especially in situations like parties and going out to eat with friends, it's not the food that is giving you the experience. It's being present and being with the people. Do you get what I mean? So put your value on that as opposed to the food, and you may just make the decisions that you want to make. The other thing I would suggest is be flexible on yourself. While I have said all this about, being disciplined and talking yourself into making decisions, also be flexible. Don't be so rigid. Like, you could set a plan and a friend goes, I really just don't want to eat at that restaurant. Can we eat here? And all the other friends go, yeah. And you're just left going, but I plan to eat there. I've worked out my calories. I've done it. It happens. Just go with the flow. Like, sometimes life throws you curveballs and you just have to kind of roll with the punches. Like I said at the start of this episode, good way to bring it back full circle. Good place to come to an end as well. So just kind of be a bit more flexible. Allow for these changes that are going to be, the more rigid you are, the more stressed you're going to feel. And the last thing you need to feel is stressed about nutrition. One meal is not going to end the world. Like, one meal is not going to throw you off the track. It's not going to derail your progress. If you've been consistent for so long, let's say, even if it's just 2 weeks, one meal is not going to harm that. And what you can literally do is either do damage control or literally just flick the switch. I was, a little bit off it on the goal front. I didn't quite meet the goals I needed to, but from the very next meal, the food that I put in my mouth, I'll be back on it. It's not like a yo-yo of like, it doesn't need to turn into a downward spiral. It could be a little blip and that's it, and leave it in the past and just move on. So I hope that you have found a lot of value in that episode. If you have, please let us know. Please share this with one friend. We really, really do appreciate it. We don't have like a massive budget when it comes to these podcasts. We actually lose money on these podcasts, recording these podcasts, because we pay someone to edit them and things like that. So what we would love for you to do is just share it with one person that you think that this will be beneficial to. And if you don't feel comfortable, because we understand, we talk about things that are like helping you with fat loss. You're not necessarily going to want to go, hey, check this podcast out. I think you'll really benefit from it because you're struggling with your nutrition. What an easy way to do is just screenshot this now, go onto your stories, tag me at Vin and Beyond and Body and Beyond UK, and just say to, all of your friends on Instagram, just go, hey guys, just check this podcast episode out. I loved it. And I think you will too. And they can then go and find it on their own. So with that said, thank you very much for listening. Over and out. I hope you really found value in that episode.